Hi beautiful people, Pina here, nutritional therapist and energy medicine practitioner. Welcome to my Nutrition 101 series. The aim of this series is to give you information on nutritional topics without using scientific terms or too complicated body mechanisms. The aim of these videos is to give you practical day-to-day information, nutritional advices and suggestions so that you can make informed choices. In this video, we're gonna be talking about sugar addiction, why sugar is as addictive as a class A drug, and in specific, the three mechanisms that make sugar so addictive. We're gonna be touch on artificial sweeteners, and finally, I'm gonna give you 6 nutritional tips that will help you to start weaning off sugar naturally. Okay, so high sugar intake diets bring about lots of symptoms, and we spoke about these in my previous 2 videos. When I say high sugar intake diet, I mean specifically 3 types of sugar-rich categories of foods. 1, sugary foods, sugar itself and sweets. 2, refined carbohydrates, so white products like white pasta, white rice, white potatoes, and white bread. 3, added sugars in products that should not be really sugar there, like ketchup or beans or takeaways. So high sugar intake diets brings about a wide array of symptoms. Weight gain, tooth decay, inflammation, high blood pressure might lead to diabetes type 2, which consequently will bring about problems with the kidney, cardiovascular. An excess sugar intake also causes hyperactivity, poor concentration, and blood sugar dysregulation, insulin spikes, playing with your energy level, and you end up feeling fatigued, tired, and brain fogged. So, if we know about all these problems and symptoms that a sugar-laced diet brings, why are we so addicted to this substance? Literally, the more we have, the more we want. We even invented a term. We call it, we have a sweet tooth. It is scientifically proven that this substance is as addictive as class A drugs like cocaine or heroin. So here are the mechanisms why. High sugar intakes raises dopamine. Dopamine is referred to as the reward hormone. It exerts its actions in the brain, but generally we know it as the reward hormone or the pleasure hormone or the pleasure neurohormone. That's because dopamine acts also periphericals in some tissues, but the functions that we're more interested on today are the function that dopamine exerts within the brain as a neurotransmitter. It brings about positive reinforcement, euphoria, pleasure, but also motivation, alert, and focus. Dopamine activates something in the brain that is called a reward pathway. So in order to explain that, I need to go back a little bit and explain how hormones or neurotransmitters works in the body. To keep it very simple, in order for these hormones or neurotransmitters to exert their action, they need to have something called receptor. So a receptor is the receiver for these substances. Think of it as a lock and key. So the neurotransmitter, dopamine in our case, it's the key and the receptor is the lock. They only match each other. So the dopamine only goes and sits into its own receptor, into a dopamine receptor. Now, in various parts of the brain, you have various dopamine receptors. What does it mean? It means that each part of the brain, once the dopamine activates the receptor, will give a different response. Like we say, dopamine does different things. All you need to know is that different parts of the brain stimulate different responses. So this is what happened. So let's take a piece of cake as an example. You eat the first mouthful of that piece of cake. That action releases dopamine into the brain. Dopamine gets spread into these various receptors in various areas of the brain and stimulates different responses. All together, the brain creates an experience. The experience tells you, this feels good, I want more. in a nutshell. There's no need to know what area of the brain stimulates what, but the end result is, I love the give me more. Together, the brain makes the connection between the activity and the pleasure, ensuring that we repeat the behavior. So it stores a good memory of the cake you ate. Let's say on a Saturday you go out with your friends and you find this lovely place, this lovely coffee shop, and you sit for cakes and you pick a cake that you think you like and you loved it. So you have this good memory and the brain wants to repeat that. Why? Because it felt pleasured, rewarded, euphoric, motivated. It felt alert and focused. So then what happens? You repeat that experience. You go every Sunday to get that cake. And then maybe during the week you have cakes in your house because sugar is very easily accessible and it's cheap. So everyone can buy it anytime, everywhere. So as you repeat that experience more and more, and you eat sugars more than once a week, more than as a treat, and you eat them once a day and then you eat them more times per day, you develop something called tolerance. Tolerance is the need to have more of that substance, sugar in our case, to receive the same effect. And this only happens when there is overstimulation of dopamine. So when we keep on eating sugars more often than not, keep on repeating that behavior, the brain goes to a stage where it says, okay, that's enough. I'm getting overstimulated far too many times now, and I don't like that. So the body has a mechanism to protect you. What it does is the brain shuts down some of the receptors for dopamine. So I'll give you an example. Instead of 100, now you have 50. So as you eat that piece of cake or any sweet food, you get the same dopamine release, but less receptors to receive it. So less stimulation, less results. So the receptor is where dopamine exerts its results. So it's what dopamine is. So it's what you feel from that neurotransmitter. So again, in our case, pleasure, euphoria, reward, and the feeling of motivation, focus, and alertness. So now you have less of that. And therefore, in order to get the same as before, you need to increase the dose of the substance. And with sugar, in order to do that, you get compulsive cravings. That's the body signaling like, give me more, and gives you cravings so that you go and get for more. So compulsive cravings bring you high sugar intake, and that raises dopamine, reward pathway, and we're going around and around and around. That is the circle of addiction. The same pathway that heavy drugs, but also nicotine, alcohol, pornography, gaming, everything that we bring into the excess, everything that we let guide our lives, that behavior that we keep on repeating until we develop tolerance. So then we need more of it to fulfill the same reward. And that's just one piece. There's two more hormones that high sugar intake goes and stimulate. So you bite on that piece of cake, not only dopamine rises, but serotonin rises. Now, serotonin is the happy hormone. It's the hormone that makes you feel emotionally happy, at peace, regulates your mood, and also regulates satiety. Serotonin rises because insulin rises. When we eat sugars, the sugars get digested and then get absorbed through the blood. And it's in the blood that the sugar signals the pancreas to release insulin. And then the insulin goes, grab the sugar and brings it into the cell, where the cell then creates energy out of it. I had a whole video about this, my first video on carbon metabolism, so if you want to go and check on that, where I explain the systems in details. So as insulin rises, because there's sugar in the blood, serotonin rises as well. So in an ideal situation, we got enough sugars, now the insulin goes and gets it and brings it to the cell where it's going to be used for energy. And the hormone serotonin will indicate satiety, will tell us, stop eating, we got enough. But as we are overstimulating the dopamines to keep on firing that reward pathway, high dopamine lowers serotonin. On a short term, great. You not only get that reward and motivation from eating that cake, you also get that spark of happiness, of feeling joy, comfort, and peace. But it's very short term. Actually, on a long term, your serotonin lowers, which means we're risking of getting depression, because serotonin is the happy hormone, it's the mood, regulates mood. On low serotonin means feeling unhappy, and feeling unhappy on a long term can bring to depression. And to add to that, there's another mechanism. High sugar intake raises opioids within the body, in the specific endorphins. You might have heard of this term endorphins. They are your natural painkillers. Yeah, you heard right. The body, amazing body of ours, has a mechanism to lower pain. And endorphins are raised during labor or during an accident. They suppress pain and they give you analgesia. They're not as powerful as synthetic opioids like morphine, for example, or heroin. And what endorphins do, they cause dopamine to raise as well. So here you see the circle of dopamine rising again. Also, you see why we get so hooked up on sugars. That bite of that piece of cake stimulates so many amazing things. Takes your pain away, makes you feel happy, motivated, rewarded, pleasured, euphoric. Who doesn't want to feel like that? High sugar intake causes something called opioid-mediated dependence, which means that sugar deprivation then brings about withdrawal symptoms like body tremors, body shakes, teeth chatter, irritability, anxiety, depression. These are withdrawal symptoms that you experience with cocaine, heroin, morphine-based medications, nicotine from cigarette smoking, and alcohol. The same pathway, the same hormones raised. But there's a difference. I've seen people smoking 10 cigarettes a day, every day for 10 years, a whole day life. They manage. I've seen people having a glass of wine in the evening, every evening, but that's all. They never develop tolerance, so that need to get more to get the same effects. But that's easier to develop with class A drugs. They're much more addicted than alcohol and cigarettes. And then of course depend of the social environment people is in and many other factors of course. But generally speaking, it's much more easy to remain hooked up on class A drugs than others. And sugar, guess where sugar sits? Right next to class A drugs. They done many scientific researches and wrote papers testing rats with sugar for addiction, and time again, addiction to sugars came as high as addiction to class A drugs. And I'm going to put the links of some of these underneath this video. And now you're gonna tell me, right, no worries, Pina, problem sorted. I'm going to swap sugars for artificial sweeteners because they taste sweet, but they're not gonna raise my blood sugar levels, therefore they're not gonna spike my insulin. And I said, yes, that's why they created, but that's not the whole story. As a nutritionist, I do not suggest to do that, to swap for artificial sweeteners. One, because they're artificials, synthetically made in laboratory. And because of that, they have a long list of side effects. First, or most of them, is aspartame, which in some countries actually been banned. Acesulfame, saccharin sorbitol, some of them are naturally derived, but they are synthetic extracted or synthetically made. The body does not recognize them and they'll bring an array of side effects. A couple of them are actually of a natural source, like stevia and xylitol, so they tend to have less side effects, but they still have some. And on top of that, the overall problem that I find with artificial sweeteners is that they are between 200 to 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. So what happens? They trick your brain. Simple as that. As you eat them, you get the sweet taste. So you still get the dopamine reward pathway activated. So that's one thing. Two, you get no sugar in your blood because of course they don't raise your insulin because they're not sugar made. That's the whole purpose of being created, the artificial sweeteners. They give you the taste, but there is no sugar there in your blood for your insulin to go and carry into the cell. So the body says, hang on here, I tasted, experience, I had that taste, so I remember that experience, but I'm not sending the insulin to go and pick up anything. What does it mean? Where is that compound that for me is energy within the body once transported within the cell? Where is it? Why I'm getting the sweetness and I'm not getting what I need? So what happens as a consequences? Cravings. Because the body's like, give me more sugar. I feel I had it, dopamine spiked, but I've got no sugar in the body, so you still have cravings. And do let me know in this video if any of you have tried to substitute with artificial sweeteners, whether they worked for you. What can we do so that we can wean ourselves off sugars naturally? I give you 6 tips. Tip number 1, improve the quality of your products. So in regard of sugar, go from refined to unrefined. Switch to natural sugars. So for example, are you using white sugar? Then switch to unrefined cane sugar or coconut sugar or date, maple syrup, or even better, honey. They're still gonna spike your blood sugar level. They're still gonna give you a dopamine high, but at least they are more natural. Therefore, they're less refined, they'll have more fibers, they'll have more vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that the body can actually utilize. Suggestion number 2, lower the quantity. So you raise your quality and at the same time you lower the quantity. That's also very important. So how do you do that? Well, you start from your baseline. Your baseline is how many teaspoons of sugars you use in your tea in the morning, for example. 2, 3, okay, whatever you use, that's your baseline. Let's say 2. So you pick a day, Monday, for example, an easy day, and you put 1.5 teaspoons in your tea. Even if you have a couple of teas a day or your coffees, reduce it of a little. So for example, instead of 2, 1.5. 1 week, that's what you need to do. Following week, reduce to 1. Then again, following week, reduce to half. And then the following week, reduce to 1/4 until you literally use a tip. But you substituted your quantity, remember that as well. So what happens doing that? You avoid withdrawal symptoms. Some people like to go cold turkey, where just like from a day to the other, they just clean the pantries and off they are. But it's going to be harder. If you choose to do that, well done. Please let me know how it goes. But there are ways that you can do where you might avoid withdrawal symptoms. Suggestion number 3, healthy alternatives. An example, do you like candies? Switch for fruits. Fruits is natural. Fruits is real. The body recognizes it. It's got fibers, it's got minerals, it's got vitamins, stuff that the body can actually utilize. And it's got fructose. Fructose is sugar, but guess what? Fructose does not raise your blood sugar levels, even though being a simple sugar. And I actually talk about this on my first video about carb metabolism. And you will find that right at the beginning, if you do have a sweet tooth and a sugar addiction, really, and you don't even realize you do, because generally we don't know until we stop it. At the beginning, you would not feel how sweet that apple, that pear is. Only when you start to wean off sugars, you will enjoy the actual real taste of fruits, and you will appreciate more, how sweet some fruit is. Chocolate. Do you love milk chocolate? Ooh, extremely sweet. And you will only realize that once you swap for an healthy alternative. So in this case, darker chocolate. So start with, what is there out there, 50%? And then in a week time, try the 65% and then the 75%. And then another week goes, try the 80%, and that's quite bitter. And then do this experiment. After a few weeks of being successively weaning off yourself from that amount of sugar that you had before, do go back to that. Just as an experiment. Test that piece of cake that you had 2 months ago. Just a little bit. Hopefully you will not get into that pattern again. If you don't feel you want to do it, don't do it. But in case it happens, like, you're out with friends and you get that thing that you haven't had in a while, you will see how sweet that will be to you. You'll be like almost disgusted because I've done that. And now I know that I cannot eat anything conventional. Suggestion number 4, raise your protein intake and your good fats intake. 2 reasons for this. First reasons, protein and fats slow down the absorption of sugars in the blood. I'll talk about this in carb metabolism more in details. And so you'll have less of the sugar spikes. But another very important point is that those 3 chemicals that we mentioned earlier, dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, guess what they're made of? They're made of protein. Well, amino acids, which is a building block for proteins. The body breaks down protein and makes them into little amino acids. In the specific, serotonin is made with tryptophan, which is an amino acid, so it's a protein, dopamine with tyrosine, and endorphins are made of peptides, which are protein. So you, by eating proteins, you help your body to naturally create those hormones. I want to make a very important point here. It's not about lowering dopamine. It's about lowering the overstimulation of dopamine. These hormones, we want to keep them steady. Okay, we don't want to go lower on them. I'm not saying that dopamine is bad. You want to have a balanced dopamine that you feel rewarded. You feel okay to get out of bed in the morning. But when your dopamine is low, that's not good either. That's terrible. That's you feeling unmotivated. You'll have no will to live in extreme cases of low dopamine. So we just want to balance them. Tip number 5, water hydration. Very important, generally speaking, but especially when you're weaning off sugar. Water washes away toxins. Not only activates all organs and makes everything working optimally within each cell has a base of water, but also washes away toxins, and sugar is a toxin. It is treated as a toxin in the liver and by the kidney as a waste product. So we need to waste it. We need to release it. We need water to wash it out of our system. Generally, we're talking about the usual recommendation, 1.5 to 2 liters a day. Depends on the climate where you live. Depends if you're a male or a female. Female need a little less. And obviously, if you're in a hot climate, you need to drink more. But generally, drink more than you usually should. Drink when you're not thirsty. Because we can't wait to be thirsty to drink. When we're thirsty, we're already dehydrated. And then tip number 6, supplementation. So let's say you've done all of this and you still feel like you're really struggling with cravings and the need of being rewarded and that sweet tooth. So in that case, there are specific supplements that support cravings and blood sugar regulation, and also others that support those specific neurotransmitters. The thing is, with supplementation, I would not dispense advices just like this, because I believe in the uniqueness of each individual. Our lifestyles, there's so many things involved, like stress levels, type of work we do. For example, some supplements being taken during the day or others in the evening. We want to look at sleep patterns as well, and especially want to look at therapeutic doses. Not everyone is the same again, and I would not feel that confident to just give you a bunch of specific supplements, because I would not know what's your therapeutic dose against that of someone else. But generally speaking, one thing that is very, very safe, it's cinnamon. Cinnamon, yes, a cooking spice, a sweet spice. Cinnamon balances your blood sugar levels and helps with cravings. Get to do your habit to add cinnamon to your breakfast, to your everywhere. If you do it like this, you won't reach a therapeutic dose. You might want to buy a supplement that's specific to that with all the nutrients within it. And if that's your case, that you still feel like, I want to have a supplementation protocol specific for this, please contact me, because we can do a mini consultation for you with just the supplements protocol as you have your diet or workout, for example. That's fine. I'm happy to do that and design it around you. But generally speaking, the aim is to retrain your taste buds to bitter flavors. So think about bitter herbs to make salad with: dandelion, chicory, rocket, amarula, teas like burdock, dandelion again, milk thistle. These 3 herbs are amazing to support your liver to detoxify, stimulate digestive enzymes that also help your taste buds to become more accustomed to bitter taste. And a supplement that I feel I can suggest safely is magnesium and B complex together. Just take it during the day, morning with your breakfast or with your lunch. Don't take it towards the evening, because most B vitamins are excitatory. They work for your nervous system. They are cofactors for the creation of some of these hormones. And magnesium, it's amazing for relaxation, optimal bowel movement, and again, it's a cofactor along the B vitamins for the natural production of these hormones. Again, therapeutic doses can be an issue. You might want to take it separately. For example, if you're more constipated than someone else, so then I'll probably take the magnesium separate in the evening at your own therapeutic dose, and then take a B complex on its own during the day. And also there's lifestyle things that you can do to naturally raise those free hormones that we talk about today. For example, endorphins. Endorphins are raised with movement, body movement, sports, exercise, yoga, and also with laughter. Did you know that? Laughing, even on your own. Watch a movie that makes you laugh. That raises your endorphins, your natural painkillers. Aromatherapy, interesting enough, there's some oils that you can smell or have in a scented candle or in your bath. For endorphins, these are citrus, lavender, and rosemary. Rosemary is my favorite. Serotonin. How do you raise serotonin naturally through lifestyle? Well, serotonin is the happy hormone, right? So everything that makes you happy. Do more of the things that make your heart sing. Is that painting? Is that singing, dancing, walking in nature, expressing yourself in any way, and also socializing with your family, with friends. Dopamine, the reward hormone, the pleasure hormone. Get intimate with your partner, listen to your favorite music, meditation, get enough sleep. Because also another function of dopamine is that to regulate sleep. So as you get enough sleep, you raise your dopamine level naturally. Essential oils of citrus again, rosemary again, also bergamot, rose, and sage. Those also useful to raise serotonin. So to balance dopamine, remember, to raise if you are low, of course, but to keep your dopamine balanced and naturally raise your serotonin. Because if you keep on striking up your dopamine, then eventually your serotonin will lower. So that's not good at all. And in terms of food as well, we said protein. So anything from organic, grass-fed if possible. Dopamine is also raised by everything that raises your self-esteem. So for me, for example, I listen to inspirational podcasts or talks. People that raise your vibration, people that tell you that you are an incredible human being with such a potential. Sometimes you need help from outside. Don't do this on your own. There is a huge support out there that comes from many different things. So please find your way to do some of these things, to find what is the best way for some of these things to get actualized and what does it resonate with you. One at a time, don't feel pressurized from a lifestyle perspective, but from a nutritional perspective, those 5 points that I just gave you. Try to actualize them if you feel you have a sugar addiction. And of course, if you need help with designing the whole protocol, I'm right here should you choose to. Okay, so that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, like and subscribe, of course. And I'll see you next time. Bye now.